There's a moment in everyone's life when exhaustion becomes a teacher. When you've tried everything, pushed every door, forced every outcome, and nothing works. Then, in that moment of supreme tiredness, you stop. You surrender. You let go. And that's when the miracle happens. The door you've been pushing, it was meant to be pulled. The path you've been forcing, it was waiting for you to flow. The life you've been controlling, it was designed to unfold naturally, like a flower that blooms not because you demand it, but because it's ready. The Buddha discovered this truth 2,500 years ago under a Bodhi tree. After years of extreme practice, extreme discipline, and extreme effort, he stopped. He sat. He let go. And in that letting go, enlightenment found him. Not because he chased it, but because he finally stopped running. This is the paradox that changes everything. When you stop caring so much about controlling life, life starts caring for you. Part 1. Fear is a self-fulfilling prophecy, the mirror that creates what it reflects. Your fear doesn't protect you from danger. Your fear becomes the danger. Imagine walking through a dark forest, convinced that every shadow is a threat. Your heart races. Your breathing quickens. Your vision narrows. In this state of fear, you stumble over roots you would normally see. You run from harmless sounds into real dangers. Your fear doesn't keep you safe, it creates the very chaos you're trying to avoid. This is what Buddhist psychology refers to as the second arrow. The first arrow is what happens to us, life's inevitable challenges. But the second arrow, that's what we do to ourselves through fear, worry, and resistance. And often, that second arrow hurts far more than the first ever could. Think about someone afraid of rejection. Watch how they behave. They hold back their true selves. They appear distant, cold, and unavailable. Their fear of rejection creates behaviors that invite exactly what they fear. They become architects of their own abandonment, prophecies fulfilling themselves with devastating precision. The Buddha taught that our minds are like painters, constantly creating the world we experience. When fear holds the brush, it paints dangers everywhere. It colors neutral faces with hostility. It shades opportunities with threat. It turns possibilities into problems before they even exist. But here's the revolutionary truth: you are not your fear. You are the awareness that observes the fear. You are the consciousness that can choose which thoughts to believe and which to let pass like clouds across an empty sky. Practice the fear dissolution breathing. Sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Bring to mind something you fear. Don't judge it. Don't fight it. Just observe it. Now breathe in slowly for 4 counts, imagining you're breathing in pure, golden light. Hold for 4 counts, feeling that light filling the space where fear lives. Breathe out for 6 counts, releasing not the fear itself, but your resistance to feeling it. Repeat this 5 times. With each breath, notice something remarkable. The fear doesn't necessarily disappear, but it loses its power to control you. It becomes just another sensation, like warmth or coolness, neither good nor bad. Just present. Just passing. This is the first step to freedom, not the absence of fear, but the presence of awareness that's bigger than fear. Your fear doesn't protect you from danger. Your fear becomes the danger. But you are the safe space where even fear can be held with compassion. Part 2. Strength through surrender, the bamboo's secret. The strongest trees are those that bend. The deepest rivers are those that yield. We live in a world that worships force. Push harder. Grind longer. Control more. But have you ever noticed that the people who seem most at peace, most successful in the deepest sense, are those who've learned the art of surrender? This isn't the surrender of giving up. It's the surrender of giving over, placing your efforts in service of something greater than your small, frightened ego. It's doing your absolute best, then trusting life to meet you halfway. The Buddha called this right effort, not no effort, not forced effort, but aligned effort. Like a surfer who paddles hard to catch the wave, then surrenders to its power once caught. The wave does the work. The surfer simply stays present, balanced, responsive. Consider the story of water. It never argues with obstacles. It doesn't declare war on rocks. It simply finds another way, over, around, through. And given time, that yielding water carves grand canyons, shapes continents, and sustains all life. Its power comes not from force but from persistence without resistance. In your own life, think about the times when surrender brought a breakthrough. It could be a relationship that healed when you stopped demanding change. A career that flourishes when you stop forcing outcomes. A problem that solved itself when you stopped obsessing over solutions. This is the sacred mathematics of surrender. The less you grasp, the more you receive. The less you demand, the more you get. The less you control, the more it unfolds perfectly. Practice the surrender stance. Stand with your feet hip-width apart. Raise your arms above your head, fists clenched tight. Feel the tension in your shoulders, your arms, your whole being. This is what control feels like in your body. Now, slowly open your fists and let your arms float down like falling leaves. As they descend, say quietly, I release what I cannot control. I embrace what I can influence. I trust life's perfect unfolding. I am strengthened through surrender. Feel the relief flooding your body. This is what surrender feels like, not weakness, but a different kind of strength. The strength of the river that shapes mountains. The strength of the wind that moves oceans. The strength of letting life flow through you instead of forcing it to bend to you. The strongest trees are those that bend. The deepest rivers are those that yield. And you are learning that real power comes not from controlling life, but from dancing with it. Finding peace in these words. Subscribe to Buddha Coha for daily wisdom on the art of mindful living. Part 3, The Present Moment as Sanctuary, Your Only True Home. Anxiety cannot survive in the present moment. It needs tomorrow's food to live. Right now, in this exact moment, where are your problems? Not the thoughts about problems, but the actual problems themselves. If you're honest, truly honest, you'll realize something stunning. In this precise moment, as you hear these words, you're okay. You're breathing. You're alive. You're here. The problems exist in your thoughts about tomorrow, your memories of yesterday, but not in this moment's direct experience. This is what the Buddha meant when he said, the past is already gone, the future is not yet here. There's only one moment for you to live, and that is the present moment. Think of your mind as a time machine that's constantly malfunctioning, pulling you into futures that haven't happened and pasts you can't change. Meanwhile, life, real life, is happening right here, right now, in the only moment that actually exists. Watch a child play. They're not worried about tomorrow's play date or yesterday's scraped knee. They're fully absorbed in this moment's adventure. This is why children laugh 300 times a day while adults average only 20. They live where joy lives, in the present. The present moment isn't just a spiritual concept. It's your biological home. Your body exists only now. Your breath happens only now. Your heart beats only now. When your mind aligns with your body in the present, anxiety dissolves like salt in the ocean of awareness. Every spiritual tradition has discovered this truth independently. The Christians call it the peace that passes understanding. The Sufis call it the eternal now. The Buddhists call it mindfulness. But they're all pointing to the same reality, that peace isn't found in solving all future problems but in fully arriving where you already are. Practice, the five senses gateway. This practice is your emergency exit from anxiety, your portal back to peace. Wherever you are, whenever anxiety strikes, do this: see, find 5 things you can see. Really look at them. Notice colors you've missed. Shadows you've ignored. Beauty you've overlooked. Touch. Find 4 things you can touch. Feel their texture, temperature, and weight. Let your fingers remember what presence feels like. Hear. Find 3 things you can hear. Maybe it's traffic, birdsong, your own breathing. Listen like you're hearing sound for the first time. Smell. Find 2 things you can smell. Maybe coffee, fresh air, the subtle scent of paper. Taste. Find 1 thing you can taste. Even if it's just the taste of your own mouth, be present to it. This isn't just a distraction. This is returning home. Every sense is a doorway to the present. Every sensation is an anchor to the only moment where life actually happens. Anxiety cannot survive in the present moment. It needs tomorrow's food to live. Starve it with presence. Feed yourself now. Part 4. Imagine fears versus reality, the stories that steal your peace. Your mind is a storyteller, not a fortune teller. Learn the difference. Scientists have discovered something Buddhist monks have known for millennia. The human mind generates between 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts per day. And here's the shocking part: 80% of these thoughts are negative, and 95% are repetitive. We're literally recycling the same worries, the same fears, the same anxious stories day after day. But just because your mind tells a story doesn't make it true. Just because you think something might happen doesn't mean it will. Your thoughts are not prophecies, they're possibilities, and usually unlikely ones at that. The Buddha taught about papanka, mental proliferation, the way one thought breeds another until you've created an entire universe of problems that exist nowhere but in your imagination. It's like a snowball rolling downhill, gathering size and speed, until a small worry becomes an avalanche of anxiety. Here's what actually happens: you have a meeting tomorrow. That's a fact. Your mind adds, what if I mess up? What if they judge me? What if I lose my job? What if I can't pay rent? What if I become homeless? In 5 seconds, you've gone from a simple meeting to living under a bridge. This isn't planning, it's torture. Mark Twain said it perfectly: I've had a lot of worries in my life, most of which never happened. Research confirms this wisdom. 85% of what we worry about never occurs, and of the 15% that does happen, 79% of people handle it better than expected. This means 97% of our anxiety is essentially fiction. But here's the deeper teaching: even when challenging things do happen, they rarely happen the way we imagined. Reality is always more nuanced, more workable, more filled with unexpected support than our fearful fantasies suggest. Practice the thought court investigation. When an anxious thought arises, put it on trial. You be the judge. Ask, what is the evidence for this thought? What is the evidence against it? Is this thought helping or harming me? What would I tell a friend who had this thought? Will this matter in 5 years? Write down your anxious prediction. Date it. Then check back in a month. You'll be amazed at how many certain disasters simply evaporated into nothing. Start a worry journal with 2 columns, what I feared and what actually happened. After a month, review it. This will become your personal proof that your mind creates more problems than life does. Your mind is a storyteller, not a fortune teller. Learn the difference. And remember, just because you think it doesn't make it true. Part 5. Control hinders faith and growth, the illusion of the tight grip. Life is like holding a bar of soap. The tighter you squeeze, the more likely it slips away. Control is humanity's favorite drug. It promises safety but delivers anxiety. It promises certainty but creates rigidity. It promises power but produces exhaustion. The more we try to control life, the more life shows us how little control we actually have. The Buddha discovered that suffering comes not from life itself but from our desperate need to control it. He called this upadana, grasping or clinging. It's the white-knuckled grip on how things should be that blinds us to how things actually are and could become. Think about breathing. When you try to control every breath, what happens? You become anxious, uncomfortable, and unable to breathe naturally. But when you trust your body's wisdom, breathing happens perfectly without your management. This is life's message, trust me. I've been doing this for billions of years. Consider how the best things in your life arrived. Were they all perfectly planned? Or did many come through unexpected doors, synchronicities you couldn't have orchestrated, meetings you couldn't have arranged? Life has an intelligence far greater than our limited minds can conceive. When we control, we operate from fear. When we trust, we operate from love. Fear contracts. Love expands. Fear sees scarcity. Love sees abundance. Fear grips. Love flows. And here's the miracle. When we operate from love and trust, life responds by bringing us experiences that match that vibration. Control is like trying to steer a river. Exhausting, futile, and it prevents you from discovering where the river naturally wants to take you, which is often somewhere far more beautiful than your limited imagination planned. Practice the weekly control fast. Choose one day this week to practice a control fast. On this day, don't plan every minute. Don't check things obsessively. Don't manage other people's experiences. Don't rehearse conversations. Don't pre-solve problems. Instead, respond to what arises. Trust your spontaneous wisdom. Let conversations unfold naturally. Watch how life organizes itself without your constant management. Keep a note of what happens. You'll likely discover that not only did nothing fall apart, but unexpected solutions and opportunities arose that your controlling mind would have blocked. Life is like holding a bar of soap. The tighter you squeeze, the more likely it slips away. Hold it gently, and it stays with you. Ready to discover more about the art of letting go? Subscribe to Buddha Coha and join thousands learning to flow with life's natural rhythm. Part 6. Stepping aside allows life to flow, the art of sacred non-interference. Sometimes your absence is more powerful than your presence. Sometimes not doing is the greatest doing. There's an ancient Zen story about a farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbors said, "How terrible." He replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned with 3 wild horses. The neighbors said, "How wonderful." He replied, "Maybe." The next day, his son broke his leg trying to tame a wild horse. The neighbors said, "How terrible." He replied, "Maybe." The next day, military officers came to draft young men for war, but passed over his son because of the broken leg. The neighbors said, "How wonderful." The farmer replied, "Maybe." This farmer understood something profound: life has a longer view than we do. What seems like a problem might be protection. What seems like loss might be redirection. When we step aside from our constant judgments and interventions, we allow life's larger wisdom to reveal itself. Think about your own body's wisdom. You don't consciously manage your heartbeat, yet it beats perfectly. You don't orchestrate your cellular regeneration, yet millions of cells are replaced while you sleep. You don't coordinate your immune system, yet it protects you from countless threats daily. There's an intelligence at work that doesn't need your micromanagement. This same intelligence operates in every aspect of your life. It orchestrates synchronicities. It arranges meetings. It opens doors and closes others. It's constantly conspiring to help you grow, evolve, and discover who you really are. But it needs space to work. It needs you to step aside sometimes. Stepping aside doesn't mean abandoning responsibility. It means understanding the difference between what's yours to do and what's life's to handle. It's like planting a garden. You prepare the soil, plant the seeds, water them, but you don't pull on the shoots to make them grow faster. You do your part, then trust life to do its part. Practice the sacred pause technique. Before every major decision or action this week, take a sacred pause. 1. Stop, literally stop for 30 seconds. 2. Breathe, take 3 conscious breaths. 3. Ask, is this mine to do right now, or am I interfering? 4. Listen, not to your mind but to your intuition. 5. ACT or allow, either take inspired action or consciously step aside. Notice how this pause changes your actions. Notice how often not doing creates better outcomes than forcing would have. Notice how life fills the spaces you create with solutions you couldn't have imagined. Sometimes your absence is more powerful than your presence. Sometimes not doing is the greatest doing. In stepping aside, you become a partner with life instead of its opponent. Part 7. The integration, living the flow state daily. Flow isn't something you achieve. Flow is what happens when you stop achieving. Everything we've explored points to one truth: life flows naturally when we stop damming it with our fears, controls, and endless interventions. But how do we live this truth daily in a world that seems to demand constant doing, fixing, and controlling? The answer isn't to retreat to a cave or abandon all responsibility. It's to develop what Buddhists call skillful means, the wisdom to know when to act and when to allow, when to exert effort and when to ease, when to lead and when to follow life's lead. Think of yourself as a dance partner with life. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow, but always you're responding to the music, not fighting it. You're present to what is while remaining open to what's becoming. You're engaged but not attached, committed but not controlling. This is what athletes call the zone and artists call the flow state, that magical space where effort becomes effortless, where you're simultaneously fully engaged and completely relaxed. It's not a state you achieve through force but one you allow through alignment. The Buddha found that this state isn't reserved for special moments. It can become your default way of being. Not through adding more practices, rules, or controls, but through subtracting, removing the unnecessary resistance, releasing the fictitious fears, relinquishing the exhausting need to manage the universe. Daily flow practices, morning intention, upon waking, before the day's demands rush in, place your hand on your heart and say, "Today I will do what's mine to do and trust life with the rest. I will act from love, not fear. I will respond, not react. I will flow, not force." Midday reset, set a phone reminder for midday. When it rings, wherever you are, take 3 breaths and ask, where am I forcing right now? Where can I flow instead? Evening release, before sleep, mentally review your day without judgment. For everything that didn't go as planned, say, I release this to life's wisdom. For everything that flowed naturally, say, thank you for showing me the way. The flow check questions. Throughout your day, use these questions as gentle course corrections. Is this thought helping or harming? Is this action forcing or flowing? Is this worry real or imagined? Is this moment really lacking anything? Closing, the ultimate permission to let go. You were never meant to carry the world. You were meant to dance with it. We've traveled together through the landscape of letting go. We've seen how fear creates what it focuses on, how strength comes through surrender, how peace lives in the present, how most worries are fiction, how control blocks growth, and how stepping aside allows life to flow. But here's the final secret, the one that changes everything. You don't have to be perfect at any of this. You don't have to let go completely. You don't have to surrender perfectly. You don't have to be present all the time. The path itself is forgiving, gentle, always ready for you to begin again. Some days you'll grip tightly, that's okay. Some days you'll flow freely, that's okay too. The journey isn't about perfection but about awareness. Not about never falling but about recognizing when you've fallen and gently getting back up. The Buddha smiled when he achieved enlightenment. Not because he had conquered life but because he realized there was nothing to conquer. Life had always been on his side, waiting for him to stop fighting and start flowing. This is your invitation to that same discovery. To realize that beneath all your fears, beyond all your need to control, despite all your anxious thoughts, you are already whole, already worthy, already exactly where you need to be. When you stop caring so much about controlling life, you don't become careless, you become carefree. Free to care about what truly matters. Free to love without condition. Free to give without calculation. Free to receive without guilt. Free to be yourself without apology. The practice of a lifetime, this isn't a teaching to master but a practice to embody. Every day offers 1,000 opportunities to choose, trust over control, presence over projection, flow over force, love over fear, allowing over demanding. Each choice is a vote for the life you want to live. Not a life without challenges, but a life where challenges become teachers. Not a life without uncertainty, but a life where uncertainty becomes adventure. Not a life without change but a life where change becomes growth. Your sacred agreement, make this agreement with yourself, I will do my best, then let go of the rest. I will plan wisely but hold plans lightly. I will care deeply but not grip tightly. I will show up fully, then trust life completely. I will remember that I am not the director of this cosmic play, but a dancer in its divine choreography. The river's secret: the river doesn't struggle to reach the ocean. It knows the ocean is its destiny. It trusts that every turn, every obstacle, every moment of its journey is perfect, even when it doesn't seem so. You are that river. Life is the ocean calling you home. Not through force but through flow. Not through control but through trust. Not through gripping but through grace. When you stop caring so much about controlling the journey, you discover something magnificent. The journey has always been caring for you, carrying you, crafting you into who you're meant to become. This isn't about not caring. It's about caring differently. Caring from a place of trust rather than fear. Caring from abundance rather than scarcity. Caring from love rather than control. The final truth: you are not separate from life, fighting against it. You are life itself, expressing through a human form. When you realize this, really realize this, everything changes. The war ends. The struggle ceases. The flow begins. And in that flow, you find what you've been seeking all along: not a life without problems but a life where problems can't touch your essential peace. Not a life of certainty but a life of trust. Not a life of control but a life of connection. This is the Buddhist way. This is the path of wisdom. This is what happens when you stop caring so much that life finally has room to care for you. Welcome to the flow. Welcome to freedom. Welcome home. If this message resonated with your soul, subscribe to Buddha Coha. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the greatest gift we can give is the permission to let go and let life flow. May you flow like water, bend like bamboo, trust like a river meeting the ocean, and discover that in letting go, you finally, truly, completely, come home to yourself.